session 5 of this unit. And in this session, we'll be looking at the physics lesson notes. My name is Patrick Ej. Now, at the end of this session, you should be able to differentiate between a lesson plan and a lesson note and know how to prepare physics lesson notes. Now, what is a physics lesson note? So, physics lesson notes contain all learning activities that are selected for a particular physics lesson, and it provides details as to how the lesson will be produced, the list of previous knowledge to be reviewed, the description of the presentation of lectures, the laboratory exercise, questions to be asked, etc. So the physics lesson note gives a detailed outline of the activities, and the form which a lesson note takes depends on the nature of the subject, the category of learners, and the available resources, among other things. So sometimes we can have it in a tabular form, sometimes we can just have it like the normal way you have been writing your notes. Now, what's the difference between the lesson plan and the lesson notes? And the difference between these two is that one is more detailed than the other. So the lesson plan and the lesson notes, which one do you think is more detailed? Good. So a physics lesson plan is short enough to be read quickly and arranged in a way that makes it easy to find each step. However, the lesson note indicates clearly the content and method of the lesson, and it also aids the physics teacher's memory. So both have similar formats, but while the physics lesson plan is an outline of the business of the physics lesson, the physics lesson note gives full account of the step-by-step business of the physics instruction, which implies that the lesson note is more detailed than the lesson plan. Now let's take a specimen of a physics lesson note, or an example of a prepared lesson note. So the lesson note must have a general information, and you observe that the lesson plan also has a general information, and the general information must include the name of school, the subject, the class, the date, the unit, the topic, the average age of your learners, and the time of the lesson. So you see that here is time and duration. So the time is between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. and the duration is 60 minutes or 1 hour. And we are looking at the concept of work. So after the general information, we now move on to the lesson objectives. And so at the end of the lesson, the student or students should be able to define work done, explain how to measure work done, and derive the units of work. So this is what goes into the objective. Now the next item is the RPK, or the relevant previous knowledge. And so here students might have learned the course of motion, which are force and friction. So in essence, students have an idea about force. And we also present the teaching aids. So what teaching aids are we going to use in teaching this topic? We will need charts. We have charts showing boys and girls lifting up or down and pushing or pulling objects. Then the reference material. So we are using a physics textbook by Euron PP and Henrix R 2020, College Physics. And always make sure you use the appropriate referencing style. So an example is the APA referencing style. So ensure that your reference material is following an appropriate reference style. Then we now move to the introduction of the lesson. So here, as students, when you are reading and your parent asks you, what are you doing? You often reply that you are working. So this is a question posed by the teacher or a preamble given by the teacher, And the teacher now moves on. How is this work different from a man lifting a block to a workman at a higher level or a man pushing a stationary car? And students are supposed to provide an answer to this question. And so at the teaching learning activities, this will be the teacher activity and the student activity will be their expected response. And so the next thing is that you now link the answers given by students to the day's lesson by linking the daily experience to the physics lesson. Then we now come to the presentation or the lesson development. And the lesson development is in steps, and the steps represent the number of objectives stated. So step 1, the teacher leads the students on the definition of work and asks them to give examples of work done. So here a teacher will lead the discussion, ask questions, as students also respond to the questions. Then step 2, which is related to objective 2, the teacher assists the students to explain how to measure work done. Step 3, the teacher assists the students to derive the units of work. So these are the set of activities that will lead to the attainment of the lesson objectives. Now we move on to the core points or the major ideas. And over here, these are the key issues or the key ideas you would like your learners to copy in their notebook. So in this topic, you must give learners or students the definition of work. And so work done is defined as the product of the force and the displacement in the direction of the force. And students must copy this definition in their notebook. Work done is equal to the product. So from the product or from the definition, we are saying force times distance. And the unit of work is Newton meter. And students are supposed to copy this in their notebook. And 1 Newton meter is equal to a joule. So these are the major ideas or the core points that students will use for reference. Now we come to the evaluation. And in the evaluation, the teacher instructs the students to solve the following problems in his presence in the laboratory while the teacher goes around to mark the written response of the students. So you give your learners an activity for them to do. And so here, these are the activities given to students or the examples they are to solve. And they are to do this in the presence of the teacher. So whilst they are working, the teacher will be going around to find out whether they are on the right track or not. Then we come to assignment. And the assignment can be a question on what was just taught or a question on the next topic. And so teacher instructs students to answer the following questions at home as homework. And in most cases, the teacher has to give students some references for them to consult. So once you give them an assignment, at least recommend 1 or 2 test materials for them to consult when they try or when they are trying to find an answer to the questions you gave them. So example, what is energy and what is meant by conservation of energy? So the whole unit is on work, energy, and power. And in the first lesson, we are done with work. And so to help our learners have an idea about the next topic, which will be energy, we give this to them as an assignment. We provide them with reference materials that they can consult. Then when we start the lesson, we can get or we can review their prior knowledge on this concept as well. Now, students, in this session, we look at lesson notes as well as the difference between a lesson note and a lesson plan. And we saw that the lesson note is more detailed than the lesson plan. Now, as we bring this session to an end, you are to write a physics lesson note for a choice physics topic for SHS1 students that will cover a 40-minute period. So select your own topic and write a detailed lesson note on that topic. But note that the notes should be for a 40-minute period. So when you are stating your objectives, make sure that they are realistic. They should be time bound, they should be achievable, specific, and measurable. I hope you enjoyed this session on lesson notes